Hey, Gritty Kitties, welcome to another episode of Catty Chats. Today we are talking to Oye Owolewa, who is running for DC City Council at-large seat. He first came to my attention because he was doing a lot of work protesting the new ICE headquarters that is slated to be constructed in the 8th Ward of Washington, D.C., and they've been going through a lot of their own special struggles because they have fewer rights than other states or counties or even cities. The President of the United States is the head of the National Guard of Washington, D.C., and you can remember perhaps how that is a problem when you have things that happen like, say, January 6th. This episode is coming out the day of the D.C. primaries, which in Washington, D.C., the Democratic primary is pretty much the election. So if you are listening to this on Tuesday, June 16th in the morning and you haven't voted yet, go out and vote. A little housekeeping for the podcast. We are going to be interviewing Gabby Soto, whose husband Martin has been imprisoned first in Delaney Detention Center in Newark, New Jersey, and now in the Elizabeth, New Jersey Detention Center for many, many months. He was also one of the leaders of the recent hunger strike and labor strike that has been going on by the detainees there. That's going to come out on June 23rd. And then for the next 2 weeks, we're going to have some best of, as well as some excerpts that you didn't see before from past interviews, because we are building up to our next season. On Sunday, July 12th, is our next Catty Chats Live, which is our monthly live stream. We're going to be focusing on attacks on trans people and especially how they affect voting rights and immigration and citizenship rights. And that'll be our episode that comes on July 14th. Unless some shit happens, in which case you may see some nude stuff if some shit goes down. Like if they start putting Donald Trump's name back up on the Kennedy Center, I will be there again. Make sure you're going to be following us on Substack as well. Our podcasts are now also on Substack, but also we have articles that go in depth around certain segments of each podcast, and we have guest articles, and we write our own opinion pieces from me, but also sometimes from other chapter captains from around the country about what's going on the ground where they live. As always, like, subscribe, write us a little of a review. Don't cost nothing. That said, we do accept subscription payments. When some people are really suffering and struggling, who might need information and support and just a nice soft place to land, and just sometimes looking at some adorable cats, we don't want a paywall to get in the way. But if you are one of the people who does have a little bit extra and can subscribe for $5 a month, it really helps. Vote, 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 vote. Claws out. Wow. I'm so excited to finally get to interview Dr. Oye Owolewa, the shadow rep for Washington, D.C., and we'll get into why it is a shadow rep. And I'm going to call you Rep Oye for this, like the kids do. Rep Oye, how you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, Blair. Thanks for having me.
You are running for the city council at large in D.C., and also you are the shadow representative in the House of Representatives of the United States Congress for the District of Columbia. Oh, hey, why are you the shadow representative and not just the representative?
That's a great question. It always comes up when people hear that I'm the shadow representative. So in DC, because we're not a state, we have a delegate who is the Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, but we also have a role called the shadow representative. And that role is to fight for DC statehood. It's a placeholding position for once the district would become the 51st state. And my typical role within that is to go to Congress, get other Congress members to support DC statehood, and also go across the country, which I've done in other states, introduce and even pass pro-DC statehood resolutions.
I have been a resident of Washington, D.C. I've been a voter in Washington, D.C. I say that with air quotes because they only let you vote with training wheels on in D.C. Can you explain why there are people in Washington, D.C. paying federal income tax and all sorts of other taxes that go to the federal government, who are full-fledged citizens of these United States, but do not have representatives in Congress who can actually vote?
Right. So people in DC, we feel like we're second-class citizens because we pay the highest in taxes and we don't have congressional representation without voting rights. And what that means is that we're literally paying for wars, we're paying for national things, and we don't have a vote, that currency of opining on how we spend that money, Supreme Court justices and beyond. But statehood doesn't just impact voting rights, it also impacts our daily lives, whether it's the way we pass laws locally in the council, whether it's our control over our National Guard, funding from the government, and even pushback against a president who deploys ICE, the National Guard, and beyond on us here in the district. So it's no longer just a voting rights issue. It impacts every single fabric of our lives here in the nation's capital.
It's a human rights issue, right? Because when you say that you do not have control over your National Guard, for example, listeners and viewers of this podcast may recall January 6th, 2021, that National Guard troops had to be called in a very odd, this wasn't a process that was in place, didn't think we were going to need it, for National Guard troops to come in from Maryland and from Virginia, because you guys could not just call out your own National Guard. Am I summarizing that correctly?
Correct. So most states, or every state, the commander in chief of the National Guard is their governor. Now, as you can imagine, DC not being a state, we don't have a governor. So the actual chief commander in chief of the National Guard is the president. So at the time where the mayor was trying to utilize National Guard resources to protect the Capitol, we had a president in Donald Trump who was actively engaging with the insurrectionists and did not deploy the National Guard for hours on end, and it led to a lot of destruction, even someone dying at the Capitol.
Seems like a really problematic loophole. I live in Maryland. I live in Baltimore. I have lived in DC. When we have issues with ICE, for example, we can have Senator Alsobrooks. Senator Van Hollen, for example, has been extremely loud and out in front about all things regarding abuses by ICE. You guys don't have anybody doing that for you who has a vote in a committee that might apply the pressure that is needed to get oversight or investigations, or even to pass or not pass certain laws. Is that fair?
Correct. And, in Congress, a vote is like currency, like you said before. To be able to trade votes for certain projects, to be able to get appropriations when you need to throughout legislation, and even to protect yourself and protect the community from ICE when you're on certain committees or have those relationships make a huge difference. The fact that DC has a delegate, which doesn't have voting rights, and no voting senators in the Senate really put us in a bind and in harm's way, to the point that now that Trump is deploying ICE in DC, we're not able to fight back the same way as folks in Maryland and even beyond, like in Minnesota, are able to fight back. So it's just a consequence of not being a state, and that's why we're pushing forward to become the 51st state.
If you had one wish for DC and voting, what would it be?
So if I had one wish for DC, it would be to become the 51st state. And if we were to be the 51st state, what would I use that one vote for? I believe we need to expand the Supreme Court and put term limits on the Supreme Court. Right now, the current construction of the Supreme Court has been manipulated by President Trump to be almost his personal defense system, and that's not good for the American people. So if we're able to have the Supreme Court reform that people are looking for, whether it's term limits, whether it's expanding the members, then I believe we'll have better outcomes when it comes to things that show up before the Supreme Court. As a healthcare worker, I also believe we should have Medicare for all, because having a single payer healthcare system is the only way we're able to reduce costs and improve outcomes. Other countries like Canada has done it, and DC right now pays the highest in healthcare expenses, and we're not even nearly close to the top in outcomes.
People have heard of these 287G agreements. It's essentially an agreement by various police departments. It's different in every state how it works. How we'll do ICE's work for them. We'll look for people's citizenship when they're in jail or they're pulled over or whatever the case may be. Now, I am happy to say that Maryland just made these illegal, although the sheriffs of 9 counties are now suing the state for that. Does the council have enough control over its own police department to do that? And could they still be deputizing? Should the federal government still be deputizing, like, I don't know, the park police?
I mean, it's possible. I know in the city council, we're able to have oversight, and we passed a law basically to end their partnership and to provide more transparency in terms of body cameras on officers when there's ICE activity and beyond. But we also need to make sure we're protecting non-citizens by providing ample legal services. I did an immigration town hall last year, a year and a half ago, and the folks didn't want to talk to me. They want to talk to the attorneys in the room because this White House has been violent against them policy wise. And these folks want professionals who can keep up to date with the ever changing policies coming out of this White House. But last but not least, we have to hold our business partners accountable. We should not have our business partners developing ICE headquarters in Southeast DC, doing business with ICE and HSI and beyond. We should have our business partners who collect billions of dollars in DC money every single year holding the line for us and choosing our dignity and our respect over their profits.
Let's talk about that for a second. When we are talking about the DHS new headquarters, is that correct? What's the plan with that? And then what could the city council do? And, some people might say, I want this headquarters here because it's going to help this. I own a deli and there's going to be more people here for lunch. So let's start with the first part. What is happening with this DHS headquarters and where is it located?
The Department of Homeland Security has a campus on St. Elizabeth's West Campus. That's in Southeast DC, 3 blocks away from my home. And about 4 or 5 years ago, the Inflation Reduction Act provided about $288 million for a redeveloped headquarters on that site. And one of our main business partners in DC, Clark Construction, was awarded that project, and they're going to be involved with developing and recreating that ICE headquarters. Now, it's not a detention facility, but this is where a lot of the people that work for ICE will be working at. Now, this is the issue. Since the Inflation Reduction Act was passed and Donald Trump came back to the White House, we've seen ICE be brutal against DC residents, kidnapping folks, tearing the communities apart, eroding public trust with MPD based off of their relationship with ICE. And in my opinion, we should see Clark Construction leave that deal. They get $3 billion from DC and DC related areas every year. That's about 42% of their annual revenue. Yet they decided to stay with this deal. And we haven't heard any council member talk about this. The mayor is not talking about this. I believe somehow maybe the information is suppressed to the press, to the news, because when I reached out to the news about this, they asked me for receipts. They asked me for more evidence, and I had to provide that for them.
That's a sign where you're like, oh, I am the hero I am looking for, when the press is saying like, hey, we're coming to you because you are, from what we can tell, the expert on this subject.
As you know, DC is pretty much against ICE. There's not too many people that support what ICE is doing. And the biggest obstacle we're facing is just public awareness. So we have staged protests, we have done demonstrations, and now we're activating DC residents about this issue, because if more DC residents knew about this, they'll be screaming about this. They'll put pressure on those in office and those who are involved with this deal to reconsider.
So when this ICE headquarters, if it were built, right, there would be ICE agents coming in and out of it all day. And is it in Ward 8? Is that right?
It'll be Ward 8, correct.
So for people who do not know, quite frankly, Ward 8 is not entirely, nobody's a monolith, but that is a heavily Black and brown populated, especially historically, but even now with all the gentrification and all the like uber fancy condos that nobody can afford going up, that is a Black, brown neighborhood, in Ward 8. And to me, that feels threatening to me, to have that if I am in that situation. That feels extra threatening, that these people are coming in and out every single day, right where I live, like on my block or 2 blocks over. Is that the feeling of those who are kind of aware of what's happening, or am I putting something on it that's not there?
Yeah, it's extremely concerning because, number one, had this been put in Adams Morgan where it used to live, you can
Right.
better believe there'll be a lot more attention on this.
Right. They're putting it where the people who are historically less economically advantaged are, and they ain't no white people there that much. There's few, of course, everywhere. It's much like when there's, environmental racism, when they're putting factories, somewhere where there's people who do not have the resources to fight big legal fights and so forth. And so therefore, that's why you have these higher rates of asthma and other diseases in a lot of, historically Black neighborhoods, brown neighborhoods in all over the country. And so this is sort of like psychological or social pollution, right? So we're putting this right there. The most intimidating organization you can imagine is being put right with the people who can fight it least, right?
Absolutely. And it's not just going to be a terror against the non-citizens community. You're talking about the National
Yeah.
Guard. You're talking about other federal agents now walking the streets of Ward 8. And we already seen the studies of law enforcement thinking that a black 14-year-old is an 18-year-old, 19-year-old. And now you're putting the precipice on young black kids in Ward 8 on how to handle themselves around federal agents. Many of them who are masked up, many of them are driving unmarked vehicles, and it just creates an absolute risk of disaster in our community. Like I said, this is 3 blocks away from my house. This is not something hypothetical. This is
No,
around my way. And I'm very concerned about the implications of our future here in Southeast DC.
it's like psychological warfare is what I mean, a lot of what they do, the cruelty is the point and all of that, all the lawsuits, let's go back and sue E. Jean Carroll and all of that sort, Letitia James and all of that psychological warfare, and this is just one more way to do it. So, the what do we do about Clark? I mean, what do we do? Like, let's say whether or not you're on the city council. Because you're not on the city council yet,
Not yet.
but you've been doing stuff. What have you been doing? And how can people help you, join you, get involved?
I appreciate that question. We've been doing demonstrations outside 1200 New Hampshire Avenue Northwest, which is the local headquarters of Clark Construction, making a lot of noise, bringing a lot of activists, but really raising the awareness of this issue. As I mentioned earlier, the biggest obstacle in this situation isn't Clark Construction winning people over. It's the fact that most people don't even know about it. And when people find out about it, there's going to be a critical moment where the energy gets so palpable that they have to decide between us and ICE. And if they choose ICE, then that's fine. And we have to reconsider who we give contracts to. But if they choose us, obviously it will be a huge detriment to the ICE facility because ICE doesn't build things, they destroy things. And if we can have all of our business partners hold firm on these projects, putting us over the shareholder profits, then maybe we can create a local district that fights back. And it's not just going to be the council alone or the mayor alone. We need everybody to stand up and fight back. And this is just the beginning of that.
And we've seen that all over the country, right? We're seeing it in New Jersey, my home state. Unfortunately, right now, I've been very involved with the folks out with the Hagerstown and Hagerstown Rapid Response about the warehouse. You've seen it in Minneapolis, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in Dilley, Texas, all of these places, Alligator, Alcatraz. And these places are not in the headlines nationally all the time, but they are locally. And there's people there, out in Delaney Detention Center in Newark, New Jersey. Those people have been there 24/7 for about a year. And yes, they're in the headlines now, and they were before when, all the representatives and the mayor of Newark had been arrested and so forth. But so what you need is people power, because it's the people who make the government move. It's the people who make that pressure happen to get what they want. And if the people aren't engaged, it's not going to happen. Right. And just to recap again, Clark gets almost 50% of its income, its revenue on any given year from the Washington, D.C. government.
Yeah. Yeah. They're building stadiums, they're building office spaces, a lot of money in the DC area, but especially in DC. They're one of our biggest construction partners. So it's they're even building the ballroom in the White House. Like, this is how big of a conglomerate they are. So, this is one of those David versus Goliath situations. But if we put energy together, there's nothing we can't change.
If there's about, however many billion coming that has to go through the city council of Washington, D.C., that feels like a lot of power, and that feels like a great way to use your new seat when you're elected. That sounds fantastic. I think the government acts when the people have made it extremely clear that is what is going to need to happen for people to stay in their positions and to keep on guiding stuff. So what else can the people pressure their government in DC to be doing to make them feel more safe?
We have to figure out what's going on with our MPD. I'm not sure if you heard about the recent scandal, but there is a allegation that some of our crime statistics were manipulated, right? Like, they were downgraded.
I do recall that.
Yeah, they're still investigating it. A couple of high ranking officers have already retired or been terminated. So we have to first of all figure out what these facts are, because public health and safety is one of the biggest issues in DC. And now that we're facing this issue, everything's getting called into whack. So finding out the real data and trying to find proactive ways to keeping people safe is critical for me. I live in Southeast DC. I'm a pharmacist and I've been volunteering in classrooms for the past 12 years. And right now, I think we need a lot more youth programs, whether it's employment, whether it's just recreation, or even just career exposure. I think is important. And right now we have a council that's being a little reactive when it comes to that. So getting people to be activated, to contact their elected leadership, let them know these are the kind of investments that we want in our budget is really critical. We just spent $1 billion on a stadium to bring the Commanders back, but at the same time, we cut people's health care and we're slashing pay equity funds. And right now, we're putting all of the sacrifices on the backs of working people. So right now is our budget season, and I, as well as a lot of other people, are focusing on the council doing the right thing and putting resources back to the working class and the middle class, and not just giving corporate handouts to those who need it the least.
Right. The trickle down thing isn't working so great right now. Or ever, but boy, is it not working for people right now. And then, so I want to just talk a little bit about you. You've mentioned you are a pharmacist. You were the first federally elected Nigerian American in all of these United States. It's you, Rep Oye. Tell us a little bit about your background and, how you wound up as a pharmacist. How'd you wind up in DC?
Absolutely. So yeah, my mom and dad were born in a very quiet, unknown, or unheard of West African country called Nigeria. Just kidding. We're nothing. We're nothing quiet. So, anyways, my parents were. They came to the United States in the 1970s, about 10 years after the Civil Rights Act in 1964. 20 years after the Brown versus Board of Education. It basically gave an opportunity for my parents to go to an integrated school at Northeast University. Long story short, they gave me three things: a Nigerian first name, Nigerian middle name, Nigerian last name. Politically, nowhere to hide. But they also pushed me to pursue a science career, which I became a pharmacist, and also to give back to the community. So I moved to DC fresh off of graduating in 2014. And I just started getting involved in classrooms, like I mentioned earlier. We started pushing kids the same trauma and expectation becoming scientists. And then one day, one of my patients told me to go to a community meeting to just get more involved. I went to the community meeting. It's called the ANC, Advisory Neighborhood Commission. And the meeting was a zoo. I mean, it was disorganized. People were rude to each other. And I did what I did best: talk trash about each and every commissioner, until somebody told me, if you're so much better, why don't you run? So without knowing anybody in my neighborhood, still having a Nigerian name, I just knocked on every door and I ran, and I ended up winning by one single vote. So if anybody says every vote matters, take a picture of this. So that's what started me off. So I went from ANC commissioner to the U.S. representative, and 6 years later, I'm here now running for at-large council.
Oh, wow. Every vote matters, guys. Every vote matters. Every vote matters. Now, did I read that you're from the Boston area? Is that right?
Yeah, born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts. Yeah.
Are you still like a Red Sox fan or whatever?
Begrudgingly shy. I shifted a little. I acquired the Nationals.
I think it's a bigger deal for me than it is for the people in DC. There's so many transplants in DC. In Baltimore, no, there is one team. This is just a random question. There's a few people, again, largely in comedy, that I've met who are Nigerian American. They're from Boston. Is there sort of a core community of Nigerian Americans in the Boston area by any chance?
There are. While there are Nigerians everywhere, there is a large swath in Boston, especially because of the colleges. You have a lot of Ivy League schools around there, a lot of schools in the city of Boston. So people typically stay where they went to school. So it kind of created a little hub of Nigerian Americans.
I gotcha. All right. There you go. There's a lot of negative things that are so freaking real, and I am not downplaying that. But sometimes we don't just want broccoli. Sometimes we want ice cream, and not broccoli ice cream, real ice cream. So what's a little ice cream? What could we strive towards? I don't even know exactly what I'm asking for, but I'm asking for like this hopeful, aspirational sort of thing, but maybe also, something cool.
This campaign has been one that's trying to inspire positivity, fun. Typically nowadays you hear about the bad things and people are so downtrodden. And I think DC residents, if not all Americans, want something positive. So we've been having neighborhood parties, block parties, events where kids can come out and grab a snow cone. We've been dancing with seniors. So we really try to match the fun and positivity that we want to see in our government within this campaign. Tomorrow I'm going to a block party in my neighborhood and we're going to be co-hosting it. And it's really exciting because we want to make sure we're smiling, with high-fiving kids and giving people something to aspire to and a better tomorrow. So it's real fun.
And we need to meet each other.
Yeah, bring them outside, have people meet each other alongside.
I get that sometimes we're going to do Zoom stuff. I'm for it. It's convenient. There's a lot of stuff that works for. And even if you're doing, like, I coordinate with captains of our chapters on Zoom, but we see each other's faces and we laugh and we talk to each other. And when we can, our chapters, we get together and we have like a happy hour or we do whatever. It's about meeting the people in the area where you live, because those are the people you're going to need to turn to first in good times and bad. Those are the people who turn out for the block party. And those are the people who help you if, a tree branch crashed through your roof. Where can people find this positive community stuff that you're going to be part of over the next few weeks? And probably way beyond that, but the next few weeks.
Absolutely. Well, we have our website, vote4oye.com. That's where you can find our upcoming events. But to be honest, we've been zigzagging around trying to bring people with each other. I think DC needs to be more unified. We have certain blocks over here that have similarities to other blocks, but they never meet each other. And as an at-large council member covering the entire district, I want to be a mobilizer and organizer in office. I want to have Northwest conversations in Southeast, have Southeast conversations in Northeast, and bring us together because we actually have similar issues and similar concerns. And if we attack them together, we actually save a lot of money versus being so herky-jerky that we're doing right now. As a pharmacist, we're trained to treat the body and not the symptom. And right now, our government treats a lot of symptoms and throws money at it rather than collectively solve problems that can really move our district forward. And that's part of the reason why I want to run as an at-large council member, to have a pulse of the entire district. So not only bring people together in fun times, but also bring people together and talk and think together too.
Okay, now we're just going to do some fun stuff.
That's me.
Look, you're in Ward 8, but you're running for at-large. So you got to have everybody in the city voting for you.
For sure.
So what do you do when people are like, best mumbo sauce? What are you going to do when you got to pick a hamburger? Like, what are your favorite places? How about you tell me your favorite places in Ward 8 first?
Ooh, my favorite places in Ward 8 is Georgina's. It's a historical place, so everyone will be okay with it. It's called Georgina's.
I don't know. Yeah, are you a vegan or did I make that up?
I am a vegan.
Okay, so let's take the hamburger. That's sort of your generic question. Like, what's your so no? Like, I don't know if you have like a vegan milkshake or a vegan ice cream place. Like, what are some places? It doesn't have to be food. I think it's getting towards dinner time, and I'm just hungry. So, what are some of your favorite places in Ward 8?
So my favorite places in Ward 8 is one is called Georgina's Players Lounge. It's a historical place that Marion Barry used to go to for a while. It's historical. It's really funny because I actually went there one time for an event, and I don't know why I'm saying this story, but the receipts at the Players Lounge. So my treasurer was like, "What the heck are you doing at that night establishment? Blah 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 blah. We're gonna get in trouble." I'm like, "What are you talking about, Players Lounge?" So I had to educate him about Georgina's Players Lounge, let him know that we're not going to go to jail. We're not throwing campaign money in an adult establishment. It is a place for kids and everybody involved. So it was that's one of my favorite locations.
It's not just like dice games in the back or what, like.
Yeah, I took him over to the place. I was like, "This is what it is." "Oh, okay, all right." I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. I also like Bus Boys and Poets. I know there's a lot of them all throughout the DMV area, but there's one in Anacostia as well. So that's one of my favorite spots too.
I like to end every podcast with a little calls out meow. Do you have any pets?
No, I grew up with cats though.
Oh, you did?
Believe it or not, I had 4 cats growing up. One was named Princess. She came and she passed away at age 30. And then I had 3 cats, right, at one time. Believe it or not, I am not joking. Their names were Blackie, Whitey, and the Gray Cat. And I protested. I was like, "That's the worst name ever." My sister said, "If you got a better name, I'll give you a week." Week came and gone. I didn't have a better name. So Whitey, Blackie, and the Gray Cat stayed.
And I've heard a lot like that, but also we wind up giving them these nicknames based on their personality that have nothing to do with their real name anyway. So and also Cat Daddies is a green flag.
Hey,
Maybe not every single one, but we love our cat daddies. We love our uncatted allies, and so just everybody know he's a cat daddy. You have here as a candidate. That's candidate cat daddy. That's a good sign. So we're gonna do a claws out meow, and so we're gonna count it down. I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3. We're gonna say claws out, and then go. Ow. I've got a lot. Senator Van Hollen, I was very surprised. He did a really good job. Governor Moore roared.
oh,
Actually roared. It was a whole thing. You should go watch it. No pressure. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Claws
what's
out.
out? Meow.
I love it. We've only met once in person for about 10 seconds. But I'm hoping I can get to one of your block parties, and we're going to put your website up. If you care about all issues related to ICE, if you care about how your dollars are being spent, like on gilding horse statues instead of helping people have Medicaid, if you care about those things, please go to the website that we will have in the bio in the show notes. And I wish you the very best of luck. And I have a feeling one way or the other, doesn't matter. We're going to be seeing a lot of you.
Sounds good, and I agree.